Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Midyear Outlook from Commonwealth Financial Network. I'm Brad McMillan, Commonwealth's Chief Investment Officer. And for the first time in months, I'm now back in the office to record this update. And that's a great start, because things are much better than they were. And the message here is that the rest of the year will keep getting better. While the headlines are now all about the problems, labor shortages, supply chains, and inflation, these are problems of success and point to how far we've come. They're also being solved even as we speak. So while there are and will be setbacks, as there always are, we are going to be getting closer and closer to normal by the end of the year. So let's take a look at just how we'll get there. But first, a little context. The medical progress we've made so far this year has been extraordinary. The pandemic is now largely over from an economic point of view. New case growth is down to pandemic lows and still declining. So are hospitalizations. The virus now appears to be contained at a national level, and that containment should hold as over half the population has had at least one shot, and we could approach herd immunity by this fall. On the economic front, the decline in medical risks has led the U.S. reopen. Almost all states will be open by midsummer. Consumer and business activity are back to, and in some cases above, pre-pandemic levels. We start the second half of the year already close to something like normal, which is more progress than seemed possible at the start of the year. And markets have celebrated by hitting new all-time highs. There's been so much progress, in fact, that it almost seems too good to be true. And so the headlines have reverted to the problems. Those problems are real, and we do need to be aware of them, but they won't derail the recovery. Let's take a look at why. The biggest medical risk out there is a more contagious variant of the virus. The Delta variant in particular could lead to new waves of infection, especially as cooler weather brings people back inside in the fall. This is a real risk and could well result in more infections, especially in areas with lower vaccination rates. But with case growth low and with national vaccination numbers rising, any such outbreaks are likely to be limited in both scope and severity. We now have the tools to handle them, so they'll end up being a setback rather than something worse. For the economy, jobs are the biggest outstanding risk, as millions of people are still out of work, and that's a problem that has to be solved. Will they go back to work? Can they go back to work? Those are the key remaining questions about the recovery. And fortunately, the answers are clear. They certainly can go back to work with job openings at all-time highs, and increasingly it also looks like they will go back to work, as many of those who left the labor force are now starting to look for jobs again. It's taking some time to match workers to jobs, which is small wonder given the disruption, but it is happening, and that progress will keep going. The same is true for the other headline risks. While supply chains now have some gaps with shortages and high prices, suppliers are working hard to fill those gaps, and in some areas, lumber and copper notably, supplies are already up and prices back down. And with both the labor market and supply chains normalizing, inflation should also pull back by year end. It's taking some time to get back to normal, but we're still making progress. Beyond the risks, there are also opportunities. The federal government continues to provide stimulus and low rates to keep the recovery going. Businesses are coming out of the pandemic more productive and more profitable. While many people were financially devastated by the pandemic, many others have amassed substantial savings, which they now want to spend. And while the U.S. is far ahead in its vaccine response, other countries are starting to catch up, and that should provide more support for growth. The risks are real, but so are the upside possibilities. And that's what financial markets are seeing as they continue to hit all-time highs. Companies are more productive and profitable and earning more for every dollar of sales. With the medical risks down and the economy continuing to grow, that'll keep going, giving markets a strong foundation moving forward. As we look at the second half of the year, the one thing to remember is this: things will keep getting better. In fact, we can now see a clear path back to normal. Will there be setbacks? Of course. But despite that, we now have normal in sight, and we should get there by year end. Together. Thanks for watching.